Hey guys, how's it going? So I just watched episode 6 of season 2 of The Rings of Power. So if you saw my review last week, you would have heard that my thoughts were it was probably the best episode or least bad episode of Rings of Power so far, depending on which way you look at it. This one I think is a little bit of a step down. Again, not as bad as the first 4 episodes of the season, I would say, but probably the second best or second least bad of the season so far. And I have some thoughts on it. I've got notes here down below. I'm just going to run through them. But just yeah, overall, it's still bad. The show still sucks, but there are some elements of it that work. I'll talk about the things that work first. So I think the stuff with the dwarves, some of it's really cringe, particularly when it comes to Disa, but I think the interactions between Durin and his son Durin are good. They're good actors and they feel the most authentic to the world. I've said this before and I'll just say it again. I think the actors are doing a good job with the material they've got to work with. It's not great material to work with, but they're doing a decent job of just bringing their characters to life and then making them feel believable within the universe. Now, speaking of Disa, there was this horrendous scene where they're trying to stop their father from digging too deep, and they find this like alleyway. I think it's the same passageway that she had found in the episode before that leads to whatever, and she's there, and these dwarven guards come up and they're asking her to move out of the way, and she lets out this bellow, this singing. It's just, my god, it's the worst sound I've ever heard, and it's to basically alert these bats to come in and attack these dwarves and send them scurrying, and it works. It's lame as, it's really lame, and Durin, her husband, comes out after that and is proud of her and all that, but it's like saying now we just have to keep guarding this thing. It's so lame and stupid. Like, they're guarding this passageway and this is the means they're going to do. They're just going to keep repelling people by her singing or using bats. It's really stupid, like form of storytelling or even just scene construction. You could do that in such a better way than just having her sing like that. It's ridiculous. But anyways, moving on. Mention a few things. There's one scene with Arondir in this show, the Black Elf. They're trying so hard to make him feel cool, like a cool character, and it's just not working. Every time they have a show him on screen, he has to do some badass kind of moment, taking down some orcs. It feels so forced. They're trying to have their Legolas of the show, who's just always great with the acrobatics and doing this and that with the bow and arrow. Doesn't come across. It's really lame, and especially when there's no stakes attached to anything that he does. He doesn't have a personality, anything like that. So nothing to work with his character whatsoever, and it's just really lame. It's lame because they're trying too hard. If they weren't trying so hard, you might appreciate it more, but they're really trying to make us think he's a cool character when he's just not. The relationship between Poppy and Merrimack, so they're going over to the Halfwoods now. You got Nori's, what's her name, Fran Poppy, who's falling in love with this guy, one of the crazy head, like Halfwood or whatever he is. It's just not like we're meant to try to feel something in that moment, but there's nothing whatsoever. Like, there's no emotion whatsoever, and so but they're trying to make it this big moment. And this is kind of the whole story of the show so far, is that they try to make you feel, they try to have these big payoffs, but there's no setup. So we don't care about anything that's happening in the show because they haven't set up anything correctly or made us feel any way about any character. You ask yourself, who's your favorite character in the show? There's no one, because no one has a personality. They're all kind of same generic fantasy character. No one has a distinct personality that you really can get behind or you really like invest in. It's so bland and boring, and I hate it. Going on from that, so they brought up a couple quotes as kind of a theme of these reviews have been doing, is mentioning some of the quotes they have in the show, because I feel like they're really trying to bring up these Tolkienian like metaphors. And the one that they brought up again from the first season that was like meme to hell and back was "the sea is always right." So we heard that mentioned here again. I think it's the first time in this season. It's just, "the sea is always right." It's such a stupid like quote. It means nothing. It's such a like airy fairy remark to make. But then there's another one where between Tom Bombadil and Gandalf, and this one's a pretty offensive one in terms of the lore of this universe, because it's basically doing the same thing where they are stealing something from Lord of the Rings. And Tom Bombadil basically says, sometimes good people die and sometimes bad people live. And he says to not Gandalf, "Who are you to decide what to do with them? Like, will you give it to them?" It's pulling directly from Fellowship of the Ring, that same quote that Gandalf says to Frodo. And it's so forced and contrived. It doesn't fit at all in this context and doesn't have any weight to it. So it just feels like a cheap knockoff of that great moment, one of the best quotes in the Lord of the Rings series, and it just feels like a cheap knockoff here altogether. But overall, this show, it was mainly focused around what's going on in Eregion with Celebrimbor, and Halbrand, and now that whole situation with the looming war that they have going on there. And I felt this episode was a whole bait and switch, because the episode before ended where basically it felt like, okay, this episode we're going to get the war. Well, no, this whole episode was a build up once again, and finally the war starts at the very end of this episode. So obviously the next one will have all the battle, and hopefully we at least get some cool action out of this, because I expect nothing of substance from the show whatsoever, but hopefully we can get some cool action out of that. We'll see. And then on the other side, you've got what's going on in Numenor, where you have Elendil being basically sentenced to death, and Muriel comes in last second to basically take his place, and they feeding her to that sea monster that's under the sea there, and basically the monster says she's not she's worthy to live, and so they deem her alive. It feels so interconnected. Nothing feels of weight or of significance. We don't really care about anything that's going on there. It's really poorly done, and there's some good actors, but they just got really bad material to work with, so they're looking a lot worse than probably what they actually are. And I think Elendil, the actor who plays Elendil, is probably an example of that. He's just got shocking dialogue, shocking scenes to work with, but I think with given something better, he could do a really good job as Elendil, but it's just unfortunate what he's stuck with. Apart from that, I'm just going to say, so going back to Eregion, they wanted to spend this episode building up to the battle, but they kept getting sidetracked with what was going on in Numenor, or going on with the Half-Eat. Like, everyone wants to see the battle now. Just build some genuine tension and stakes with this battle, instead of just sidetracking all the time to go just because they feel like they have to show us what's going on the other part of the world that has completely no significance whatsoever. And so it just really diminishes the tension or potential tension or suspense that they could build in the lead up to a big battle, but it's just not there. I mean, you think about the lead up to Helm's Deep or Minas Tirith in the Lord of the Rings films, you feel the suspense because you feel and you see the build up, and it's not just cutting back and showing for extended periods of time to something else. It's actually showing us the build up and how it's getting slowly worse for them. So this show is a mess. It's still maybe the second least bad episode of this series, so that's something, but yeah, nothing much more to say than that. It's still a terrible show, and it continues to be terrible, but we'll see where it goes from here. Hopefully some good action next week with the war. But that's my thoughts, guys. Hope you enjoyed them. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.